Welcome to the show, everybody. I want to remind each of you to like and subscribe. Today, we're joined by a very special guest. We're talking with Kavi Ramachandran Ladnier. It's so nice to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
So let's start as early as you feel like. You were born in India, is that
Yep.
true?
Yep. I was born in India. I came to the States when I was 8 months old. Um, I've wanted to be an actor since I was five, and been acting since I was about five or six. Yeah, there were not really role models in this country to really look up to. Obviously, Indian film is very big around the world, but I didn't really grow up watching too much of that. I did watch some of our, I'm from the South. My language is Malayalam. I did grow up watching some of those films, but I was really inspired by the little girl at the end of the Jungle Book when I saw her for the first time. Um, I had never seen anyone that looked like me, and I was really just blown away. And I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And yeah, and so, when I went to NYU in the early '90s, my parents, immigrant parents, I was an immigrant. There was no path put up in front of me of what that was going to look like. And I'm very blessed that my parents supported me in doing that when there was really no clear knowing of whether I could be successful at it. And I've been working for 29 plus years now professionally
So,
as an actor.
yeah, at NYU in the 90s, was that a wild time? What were you like then? I know you now, but in those days, you were probably still figuring out who you were going to become.
Yeah, I mean, I was never a wild person. I was never I actually spent most of my 20s in a lot of self-reflection. I really came into my spiritual path at that time, and so um I think a lot of the time that was spent, I don't regret it because it's where I brought me to where I am now. But I'm actually, now that I'm older, I'm starting to go backwards a little bit and enjoy myself more and have more fun. I don't think I let myself have a lot as much fun as I would have liked to, because I was really serious since a very young age about healing wounds, ancestral wounds, backwards and forwards in my life, like to make sure any child that I had would not suffer consequences of things that maybe I wasn't conscious of. And so I spent a lot of time being really conscious, or trying to be. And honestly, part of that was failing up, so to speak, because I had to learn how to be honest with myself. Because, a lot of, it's funny because this kind of leads into the film later on, but like, it's I think a lot of the journey into understanding who we are is unpeeling those layers of dishonesty. And a lot of that comes from just being afraid of not being accepted, and et cetera, et cetera. So, I went through a really, really long journey, and I'm not afraid to say it, but on Monday I'm going to be 50. And honestly, it's a life that I'm very proud of. Um, and Yeah, so my 20s were spent the beginning of that journey, from like 19 on. Um, so yeah, I mean, I did have fun. I love New York. I mean, I used NYU as an excuse to get to New York, which is where I always wanted to go. Um, but I did. I loved it. I started working while I was in college. I booked my first professional job in 1995 when I was at the beginning of my senior year. And because I had had a lot of academic credits because of the IB program in high school, I was actually going to graduate early anyway. And so I went to my dean, got, he would let me out for the semester, and then I graduated with my class on time in June. But I did my first job at Yale Rep, and it was kind of a big deal because it was this beautiful, wonderful play, and I got to perform on the same stage as Meryl Streep. And I kind of felt like I had, like, instead of wanting to, I thought I would always go to grad school. It was just something I thought I would do. And then once I accomplished that, I was like, I don't want to go to grad school. I want to go back. I want to go straight to working. And there's a little bit of I still look back sometimes and I'm in awe of the fact that I did it so fearlessly. I have to be way more conscious about that now than I was then. Then I was just so like, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm meant to do, even though there were not as many people doing it. In fact, I was part of a group of 10 maybe, and I don't even have that many when I actually started. I mean, there were a few before me, but not many. And so we were kind of the OGs, and as for us South Asians in the industry. And but I just never thought I wouldn't do it. Like, it just, I wanted to be a mom since I was 4, and I wanted to be an actor since I was 5. So I've always known what I've wanted to do, and I'm doing it, and so I'm proud of this life that um that I get to live.
Well, and I'm guessing you were studying acting at NYU also. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, speak a little bit about that. You're from the time you're 4 or 5, really knowing who you are and really driven to what will come for you. And then receiving it later on in life. I guess you have this moment at Yale Rep, and that's the catalyst for this very exciting and explosive career. What's going on? How are you kind of reconciling with who you knew you'd always be, and then receiving the payoff from it finally, or the beginnings of what will be the payoff?
I mean, I look back and I think it was so unexpected. I had applied to do an internship with a manager because I felt like I hadn't learned anything about the business. And so my senior year, instead of taking like an acting classes, I was going to work with a manager. And the very first day I went to work, she said, "Do you have a headshot and resume?" And I did not. I never left the house without one again. And that was not a time where we could download them and print them out. I had to go back on the train and go all the way from the east side, Upper East Side, all the way back down to go back up to the Upper West Side to go get my headshot and resume. And she submitted me and I booked it. And um, again, I feel like I lived in it was magical because I didn't not believe it was possible. Whereas realistically, and I don't really live in the real, but like realistically, a little brown girl in New York City in the mid 90s probably shouldn't have been working as much as I did. But it was an incredible time. And look, my the role that I played, I was on stage the whole time, but I didn't have a lot to say. And when I did speak, it was in my mother tongue, which was incredible. It was not originally written in that language. It was written in Sinhalese. And since it's a South Asian language, I asked if I could have it translated. So my mom helped me do that. And I got to tell the story of Lord Rama and Sita and this beautiful, like, using beautiful dance and imagery and speak in my mother tongue. And I remember my mom was in the audience and she just thought, this is such a blessing to be able to start your career off like this. And it's just kind of felt that way, even during the low times. I think the biggest gift is that I've never given up on myself. And and there have been low times, because that's what it means, to be an artist. It's not going to always be there. Very few that have just work nonstop consistently, but I've been consistent, in the sense I've worked every year of my life. It's just, here I've been doing this for almost 30 years. And I would say now is the first time that I'm able to support myself only through my acting. And a good part of that, I was a mother and I was going through life, stuff and everything like that. So being able to say my first job was at Yale Rep and to have worked on that stage, I mean, I was very present to the fact that I was stepping in the same steps that Meryl Streep had walked on. Like, it was wild to me. It was like, wow, this is incredible. And I didn't take it for granted, and I still don't take any of this for granted. And I think that is part of the reason I'm able to do this every day and not lose hope, and believe that bigger and better things are always coming.
It's been a really fun conversation. Covey, tell me a little bit more about where we were. You've had this very exciting launching point to your career, and then it starts to lead to things even faster at that point. Are you still in New York?
No, I'm in LA. I moved to LA 18 years ago. I was in New York for 13 years. Um, and yeah, I mean, I worked a lot in those first few years, which was extraordinary. I did something on HBO. I was in Cosby. I did a lot of Off-Broadway. It was yeah, it was wonderful. And then And eventually I got married and, and I had a child and I continued
So
to.
was that in New York when you got married and had the child?
I did. I got married in New York. I had my child in New York. I moved here when she turned 2, so my daughter's 20. Um, and I continued to work, but not as much. I mean, I really felt like what I wanted to do, I wasn't going to give it up ever. It was never going to be a part of giving it up. But, I wanted to be a room parent, and I was room parent for her all through elementary and middle school. I wanted to be as present as possible. And so if I did one job a year that made me feel, feel something, then I was happy, um, some great things happened during that time, and there were some really slow, low points as well. But again, I've always had a real strong focus about what I wanted to do and where the direction that I wanted to lead, and a lot of faith that that we're not given a dream, we're not giving this idea. I was 5 years old. I mean, good God, I mean, I don't know how many 5-year-olds that are thinking, or 4-year-olds that are thinking with that much clarity. It's like I had to trust that that was that idea that was given to me. And so I held on to it, and I still hold on to it, with a really strong faith that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
And so you have the baby in New York, you get married in New York. When do you get NCIS, the role on NCIS?
That's recent. That's my last role
Oh,
that I,
okay.
yeah, that's NCIS LA. Yeah, that's the last 2 seasons, 13 and 14. No, yeah, I've done many shows in between.
So
Um,
yeah, before we get there, then, so you've got this 2-year old, and then you're moving to LA. And what is going on with you then professionally?
yeah, so I did oh God, I think I did like background work on a Spike Lee movie when she was just a couple months old or something. And then when she was about 15 months old, the last thing of TV I did a Law and Order. Everyone has to do Law and Order when they're in New York. And I remember because I was still nursing, and I would be, pumping in my trailer in between takes and stuff like that. It was wild. Um, and then I did theater that spring. That was the last thing I did. It was really exciting theater. And I was that snob who just was like, I'm never moving to LA. I really didn't think so. I thought that my career would bring me to LA. But back then, it's not like now where New York and LA, it's like walking down the street, it's like there's no separation. It really felt like a different world. And so I would submit auditions, and they would just go nowhere because they really wanted people who were in LA and things like that. And so I started to think about it a little bit, but not seriously. And I was just like, I'm from New York. How am I going to move to Los Angeles? And I really did have a lot of preconceived notions about it. And then a friend of mine, who is a very well-known actor, South Asian actor, now, back then he had come back from LA, and I ran into him at a commercial audition, and he was like, Covey, you've got to come to LA. There's just so much more opportunity. And there was something about that. And then I met another friend who introduced me to their manager. And then I met that manager, and which actually I met that manager while I was pregnant, and she wanted me to wait until after I'd had the baby. And so I knew that now that person had moved to LA, and I was like, okay. Because I also knew that in New York, you could manage without representation if you had to. You could hustle, whereas you couldn't, I didn't really think you could do that out here. I still don't think you can really, truly do it out here because it's just, it's much more difficult. Um, and so I started thinking about it. And then I saw the back of Oprah, the Oprah magazines, and at the back of them, they would be this, what I know for sure. It's her segment of what she talks about, what she knows for sure. And it was about William H. Murray quoting Goethe. And it was essentially the quote, when you make a decision with all of your heart, Providence steps in, and all of the things that you thought were impossible just happen impossible. And in that moment, I decided I'm moving to LA. I mean, I just decided. I have a baby who's not even 2 yet. She's about to turn 2. And I was like, I'm going to LA. I called the people that I thought, I stayed in an ashram out here, actually, my spiritual community out here. I called them. They were like, come. They had someone to help me with my baby when I had auditions. I called the manager. She said, come. We're talking 2005. She said, come. Um, and I booked a ticket for 2 days after her second birthday, came out here by myself for a couple of days. My then husband, her dad, brought her out to me like 2 or 3 days later. And I fell in love with Los Angeles. And I mean, I think I'm one of the people that love both. I love New York. I love New York, but I fell in love, and I knew within a few weeks that I didn't want to leave. And I came back for Christmas to New York, packed up my stuff, and then he joined us several months later. So it was just like this. It was like following instinct, following my gut, trusting that I was being led into the right direction. And that's how I ended up in LA with a 2-year-old, which, to be honest, I still think about that now going, I can't even believe I did that. I really can't believe I did it. And I just feel like so much of, that part of my life was just following my instinct and just doing the next, um, and it was the only thing in my life that was consistent, that was strong and grounded, the ups and downs of actually being alive and like dealing with hardships and all that stuff existed, but that was always like something that I could depend on.
Let's see, the time you're in LA, you've moved there with a 2-year-old, and you're starting to, or your career is taking off even more, but you're in a new place and also with a new daughter. So you have done a few roles on Heroes at that point, and then your daughter also begins acting. She was in some roles with you early on as a baby or a child, but then as she grows up, she also grows up acting.
Yeah, she's been singing before she could talk, and she's very talented. And she started with musical theater when she was in her, like, I don't know, 11 or 12 years old. And then she booked a Disney animated series, which she was the star of, called Mira Royal Detective, at the end of her freshman year of high school. And so she did that all through high school, into when she graduated. And provided her a lot of freedom and a lot of good things, which is, it's been really, really great. She's a singer songwriter. Her first single actually dropped on December 1st. It's on Spotify or wherever you listen to music. It's called Eternal, and her name is Leela Ladner. And I'm deeply proud of her. She's a really amazing young woman, and one of my biggest teachers, but also one of the best things I've ever done. Like, raising her, is I've been I haven't, I'm imperfect, as all of us are, but I've been, even in my most unconscious moments, I've been very conscious of how I've wanted to raise her. And yeah, and so, but like I said earlier, I've wanted to be a mom, even before I wanted to be an actor. And that was, I have two sisters, and when I held one of my middle sister for the first time, I just knew that I wanted to be a mom. And I don't understand that. Like, that feels like that has to come from another lifetime of like wanting to do something, because I don't know how I could have not only the knowing that I wanted to do something, but like remember at such an early age to be able to remember it with such clarity. Um, so I feel like, um, she's the award that I keep receiving from. It's like when I see her living her life, when I see that she and I have a good, strong relationship, when I can see.
So now when you're back in New York, do you find it loud?
No, oh God, I love it. I remember when I moved into a condo in Agora Hills, and it was on the main street, and a friend of mine was like, "It's a little loud." And she had seen it before I saw it, and I went in and I was like, "Oh, I love the sound of traffic. I love it." I mean, I love quiet too now, but I love New York. I don't ever get sick of it. I do think that I could not live in New York again unless I was working in New York, or if I was very, very wealthy and could afford, because that's where I went to kind of make my dreams come true. That's where I went to when I was in hustle mode. I am no longer in hustle mode. I hustle. We all hustle as artists, but it's a different type. It's not when you're at the beginning of your career and you're just, it's a mixture of, you don't quite know yourself yet. You might have faith, but it's constantly butting heads with your fear, which is, it's not untrue as you get older. It's just, I have developed the muscles in my heart and in my soul and my mind to be able to overcome those things quickly. So I always think of myself as a New Yorker. I don't think I'll ever not think of myself as that, but I really love it out here too.
Yeah, there's a lot more space, and
Oh yeah,
it's not like you're talking all the time.
no.
And so your your early work in LA, do you find an agent right away, or what is that? Where does that lead you?
Well, I had my manager, that the one I had met when I was pregnant. She was out here. I started with them right away. So I think eventually I got an agent. But uh, and let's see, in the first year, I booked a couple of commercials. My daughter and I booked a couple of commercials, not big commercials, um, Devi, and then I did a small part in a Billy Bob Thornton movie, um, and then I booked my first big recurring guest star role, which was on Heroes, which starred Sendhill Ramamurthy, who then cut to like 2006, and then 2009 I shot on that show, and then cut 10 years to 2019. He and I starred in a two-hander Off-Broadway, which was really really awesome. And it was great. It was great to see him and to work with him again. uh that so many of the things that I didn't want to pass on, I didn't, that I, that I kind of set her up to be able to have her own experience in her own life that wasn't about me. um it makes me really proud, and God willing, I'll be around for a really long time to be able to continue to watch her grow into the amazing person that she is. But she's incredibly talented, and and I know that we'll be seeing a lot of her, whatever it is she does.
And since you're both actresses, what is that relationship like? Are there
It's interesting, right? Because she's also 20, and is also in that space of wanting to be deeply independent, and at least in our circles, everyone knows who I am, and obviously, like, if I can do anything to help her, I will. I didn't have anyone helping me. But when you want to be independent, you don't want that help either, and it's just like, I had a friend recently say to her, it's the family business. And when you think of it that way, it's not like nepotism or anything. It's not like look, even if I was, we're talking like a what, B level, C level, nepotism here, but whatever, however I can help or support, I will. Um, but she's also like, we can talk about that stuff. She's training with a teacher that I started training with when we moved out here. She's, on her own went to that space, and so now we have artistically able to meet at the same place. The understanding of a lot of the things I taught her, where they came from, um, and um, and I think that will shift and grow and all that stuff as she gets older. And but it's really exciting. But the biggest thing is that I want her to find her own path, and it doesn't have to be my path at all. I don't want that for her. And she's a singer songwriter, and who knows where. I mean, she's 20. She has got time to figure it all out. But I'm really really proud of her.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're very supportive. Do you find yourself pulling back at some moments saying, I want to be supportive, but I don't want to, have put too much pressure, have my fingers too in it?
I mean, look, that's one of the things that when I forget, she tells me, for sure. But when she was 17, that's when she really started pulling those reins and saying, I don't, or trying to let go, cut them, and it was harder then. She was still a child, and but it was good to have kind of a running start of the letting go. Um, and my job is not to micromanage her life. I think any parent, it's not our job to micromanage our children's lives. We've got to remember that. And there's always gonna be misunderstanding. It's like there's no mom who is cool all the time, or even maybe most of the time, right? And so I'm her safe place. So that's gonna either be good for me or bad for me, but it's gonna be it's the truth, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't growing pains, but that's, that's natural. And if anything, the hardest part is that um I don't want her to struggle the way I've struggled in my life. And that's the part where you just got to let go. It's her journey. This is my journey. And maybe the biggest gift I ever saw her was how often I just got back up, that I never stayed down, no matter what. And I'm not even talking about acting, I'm talking about life, a lot of the things that we've had to go through in our life together, that she's always seen me get myself back up. And, um, I hope that's shown her that she can too.
And she's a musician as well. Where does that come from?
Her father is an extraordinary musician. His name is Cooper Madison. He's a really, really brilliant musician. And so that's, I think definitely inherited the talent genes from her parents, but I think she's better than both of us, and she's, the capacity to grow beyond, what we do. And it's pretty it's pretty amazing, actually.
And like you, she started young. What do you think the importance is of starting young? Is
Well, she
that
started a lot younger than, well, I wasn't working professionally. I mean, I was doing theater and things like that. There was no opportunities for me to do anything professionally. Look, I think that she has a really good head on her shoulders, and that was part of me raising her a certain way. She's humble, and but she's very, very talented. I think it could go either way. I mean, look, I've been doing this for so long, and I only feel like I'm at the beginning now. I feel like the possibilities of how much further I can grow in my career success, like in terms of like the commercial nature of it, but also the growth of it is 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 endless, like limitless. I can still, and I didn't peak at 20 and then not have a career. It's just like it's been this growth process. And that's what I wish for her and for everyone, is that's to have longevity as long as you want to do it. Um and so I think that starting young has its benefits, and if you have a good support system around you and a good head on your shoulders and are able to not take yourself too seriously, which is all very hard to do as you're growing up anyway. But something that I taught her from the very beginning is, if it's yours, it's yours. And if it's not, it's not. And it's easy to say, it is a muscle that you must build in order to truly believe that. Because it's really hard when you don't get something that you worked really hard for, or you've had this really great audition and it didn't go your way or whatever. But um, and the truth is, I let myself feel those disappointments. I do not pretend them away, but I also deeply know that if someone else got it, it was theirs. It wasn't, just like the roles that I've gotten were mine. And sometimes those are years in between where the good, really juicy stuff comes. But I didn't choose this because it was easy. I choose it because it's what I'm meant to do.
and Covey, we were talking all about your daughter who's got an album or a single on Spotify, who's also a very talented actress. And when I first met you, you were out here for the Santa Fe International Film Festival with a film called East Bay, directed by Daniel Yoon. Tell me a little bit about your experience, or first tell me the name of the single and your daughter's name so the audience can get it on Spotify.
Sure. Her name is Leela Ladner, same as my last name, Ladnier. The single is called Eternal. And she'll be having more singles releasing every 6 to 8 weeks this year. She's putting together her album. It's really good. I'm really proud of her, and I'm excited for her. So Spotify and wherever else you can download music.
And in East Bay, you are very much the comic relief in what can be a wistful and self-reflective film. Tell me about your experience on that movie.
Oh, I had so much fun. It's funny that you call her comic relief, because it's so funny, because I don't see her that way, but you're not the only person who said that. I auditioned for this film. I mean, the story of the film, but the story of this film is it took like a decade to finish. life upon life upon life stuff that happened, and then we had a pandemic and everything else. So Daniel Yoon is extraordinary. He wrote this play, I mean, this film. He stars in it. He directed it. He helped did most of the editing. You know,
It
he's
could also be a play.
it could also be a play. I auditioned for it, you know, and actually my daughter was in a stroller when I went and auditioned for it, waiting for me with me. And we shot it up in the Bay Area, and it was an incredible experience. And honestly, I'm just so proud of this film and so excited that it's actually going to be out in the world. And it is going to be out in the world. It's the date, it's not a set yet, but it is looking for a tentative April or May theatrical release with that will be followed with streaming. And so I'm thrilled about that. And yeah, we came to Santa Fe International Film Festival, not this last year, but the year before. And that's when I saw it for the first time on a big screen. And we saw it, I don't remember which theater it was. It's that beautiful big one. Uh,
Violet Crown.
Yes, oh my gosh, I loved it. It was such a big screen. I was sitting back in the back, top back with Daniel, and the theater was full. And it was just, we had such a great response, and it sounded amazing and it looked amazing. And I'm really, really proud of the film.
He is someone you got to know during the making of the movie, but then 10 years lapse following the release of that. Did you
Right.
stay in touch much in the
Yeah,
meantime?
we became good friends, and I came on as an associate producer. I was, really a part of just giving him thoughts and, advice when he needed it, or whatever it was. I tried to do as much as I could to support him because it was a long haul, and we all know it's hard to make a film anyway, right? But then this was extraordinarily, like, it's a long time. This was Constance Wu's first film. I think it was her first major lead in a film, and it stars me and him, her, and him, in it. And it was amazing. And yes, he and I we still are very good friends, and I'm proud to support him, and I'm glad for him, that this is a great testimony to never giving up, on your art. And to be honest with you, I don't think that had it been released in 2010, 11, 12, it would have been as well received as it is in 2023, 2024. We weren't ready. The collective, we weren't ready to listen to or take in Asian American stories. They were pigeonholed. I did films back then in the 2000s as well. And, they um, very rarely, like we just won an audience award at Cinequest, like they really elevated to that level. People just didn't really care. And so a part of me is really, really glad. And just in general, like, I'm very proud of all of our performances. I'm proud of my own performance in this. And so I'm really excited at this moment in my life that it's going to be out in the world. I think it's going to be good for all of us. It's
Yeah,
really
Constance Wu's very funny in it too, and Daniel plays the filmmaker who's kind of hard up and looking looking to make something different and not keep recycling the same thing. And his parents and everyone around him are kind of uh contributing to this crushing condition that he's dealing with.
Yeah, look, it's a very I think, it's insightful, it's honest, and um it's I think it really gives voice to this idea. Okay, look, Daniel's character is Jack Lee. He's 39. He's a failure in his eyes. He thinks in his parents' eyes, he feels deeply disturbed and sad that he's letting down his immigrant parents that he really respects a lot. And he starts looking outside of himself, at this almost famous guru, at Constance Lee's art director character, you know, looking, trying to find um, find what's real, and realizing that the people around him are just as messed up as he is. And I think what this film really does is um, it gives voice to the fact that we live in a world where we are expected to be happy, or at least look like we're happy. And this is why at the very beginning of the conversation, I was talking about this idea of being authentic and being able to not just fake, when in my own journey, it's like my own journey of coming into myself was about learning to not be dishonest with myself about where I'm at, you know. Sorry, my housemate's talking. And so the film, it gives voice to that. It gives voice to, and I think it's so specific to Jack's story that it becomes super universal. I don't think there's, yes, it's through the lens of these Asian American, not all, the cast is a very varied cast, but I think that's what happens when you tell a very specific story. It becomes incredibly universal. Everyone's like, oh wow, I relate to it, um, and I think, again, there are things that it speaks to some of the things that, especially as Asian Americans, that we may not feel that we can say or not safe enough to say, about not belonging, about even our art, about the stereotypes that get put out into the world about our art. And I think it touches all of these things. And look, and I'm not making a comparison directly to this other film, but when I saw Past Lives, it made me think of this film, because again, not the same story, yes, they happen to both cover, talk about Asian, in this case, Korean, both, Korean, whatever. Yes, those similarities are there, but what hit me was that it was really honest storytelling. It's not filled with action and all this stuff. It really leaves you walk away thinking about your life, and in those ways, those two films, which, you know, again, Past Lives was incredible. So it's like even to feel that connection to such a film was pretty great. But like that's what I feel. And everyone who's seen it so far has had that same feeling, and I'm I'm really proud to be a part of a film like this. And I'm so excited that audiences are going to actually get to see it.
Now, in Sex Lives of College Girls, you play the mother of one of my favorite characters. When did you start on that show?
January of 2021 is when I started shooting that. I was in the first season. It was awesome. Amrit Gar is a fabulous actress, and it was amazing to play her mom.
She is so funny.
She's so funny. She's so funny, and she's like lights up the screen. You just can't stop watching her when she's on camera. And I loved playing with her. Yeah, and then that same year, I started towards the end of the year. I started on NCIS LA, and that was great too because I played a mom who was closer to my age, but then they aged me up to look like someone who looks like my age, and then I played someone like 15 years younger than I am because I thank God can still play 35 to 50 or whatever, and so I started a 2-season run as a principal recurring on NCIS Los Angeles. And that stopped early in the spring, um, shortly before the strike.
And I love those pictures of you at the strike in the festival hats.
I noticed you kept tagging. I mean, on those, yeah. I kept tagging Santa Fe. Well, I love that hat. I really wear that hat a lot.
Yeah, I really enjoyed those. Do you want to say anything about the strike or anything at all? That's pretty much a show. So, anything you want to add before we go? Anything we missed?
Yeah, look, the strike was really powerful moment of connection. And I think that it was really important that the solidarity that was expressed, I think it's really important, and I hope will carry us moving forward. I don't think we all felt that, within the industry. And I'm excited to get back to work. And, I'm not going to talk politics or any of that other stuff, but I will say that I think that that same thing that drives us to be artists, that drives us to seek unity in diversity, that strives, that helps us want to convey stories and empathy, for people who are unlike us, are the things that make us artists. It's the thing that makes me an artist. And with the state of the world right now, I think artists specifically need to find their voice and figure out how to do that. Um, Again, I'm a very vocal person about, you know, about humanity and about, how I feel about things. And I feel like those things all together, that's what really makes us, um, that's like the soul of an artist, right? Is to shake things up and to speak truth to power and to and to live that and to come from that space. And so, um, so I am I just, and I appreciate you letting me say that, because I would be remiss to not say that, because, with the state of the world right now, my heart is in a constant state of breaking, but the hope is there's hope there too. And the hope is that people start coming back to their hearts. And when we can come from our heart, then we won't see others as different from us. We'll understand that the unity in our diversity is what makes this planet, this life that we live, so incredible and such a gift. So I'm just praying for peace, and that we can you know start to enjoy one another rather than tear each other down. And
Everybody, this is Kavi Ramachandran Ladnier, and we'll see you next week.